Today I'm excited to begin my final bushveld painting that is to be a part of a collection of 5 paintings I am currently busy framing with my own handmade special frames. Let's begin. It's not always a good idea to be too picky about references. You can become overly analytical, wondering if the idea you had in mind for your painting will work. And your left brain starts taking over, and you end up creating nothing, or even worse, stifle your own creation. So one of the best things you can do is to just start. Be in the mystery. That is the place where a lot of great paintings happen. So I'm placing out my colors, starting with titanium white, violet, cobalt blue, Mars brown, magenta, cadmium red, cadmium lemon, buff titanium, cadmium orange, olive green, and cerulean blue. So it is important to mix out all the colors you intend using in the painting first. Half the battle in producing a great work of art is got to do with how you set up. When you set up correctly, your execution flows and you avoid frustrations early on. It is usually in the early and beginning phases that the vast majority of paintings fail. After mixing copious amounts of paint on my palette, I'm now ready to begin drawing out my composition on a canvas board approximately 60 centimeters by 50 centimeters in dimension. The canvas is double primed and quite thirsty, so my initial layers of paint go on with a layer of mineral spirits, almost like an imprimatura, except I'm not using a dark color here. I'm using this stage to work out the color scheme of my painting. I'm using the cobalt blue mixed with cerulean blue and titanium white for the sky here. And I'm adding in some solvent medium to make it easier for me to apply the paint to the surface. I'm bringing in dark colors first, like the violet, mixed with magenta and a touch of Mars brown for those clouds. I'm blocking in big shapes and thinking of my painting in terms of abstract design. The muted tones in the sky is a mix of my cobalt blue and cerulean blue and a mix of cadmium red, touch of cadmium lemon and buff titanium. And I use that color scheme as a transit color between the blue at the top and the orangey red colors closer to the horizon where the sun sets. The distant mountains are quite cool and dark, with a mix of cobalt blue, ultramarine, magenta, and Mars brown. I just want to keep these mountains faint and monotoned to project the distance in the landscape. When we're working with late afternoon sunset mood like this, the same rule applies for atmospheric distance, with cool colors in the distance and the colors gradually warming up the closer to the viewer's point of view. And by using a varied range of hog bristle brushes of all different shapes and sizes, I can indicate the texture of the grasses in this arid landscape. Before we carry on with this video, I have a quick announcement that I want to make. My Bushveld series is taking shape, and I have just finished my second frame out of the 5 pictures I intend to frame in this series. Very soon I will be doing an unveiling ceremony right here on YouTube, so please keep your eye out for this. It will be a limited collection of 5 of my very special Bushveld paintings framed in some really awesome frames. So let's get back with the video. Once I've allowed my first layer of paint to dry, I can now start putting in that tree I initially planned for this painting. Now, many artists would debate that you should put in the tree right in the beginning is the correct way, as it is an important aspect of the painting. For me, that is only true depending on what kind of tree it is. A gnarly, branchy tree like an acacia can be very demanding, and in this specific situation, I wanted that sparkling backlight to complement the dark in the tree, causing a focal point where the darkest darks and lightest lights meet. I've now got my basic idea of how the painting will look, and now I'm building up my painting from the previous layers, building up subsequent layers of paint with more vibrancy and depth. The darker colors underneath can now carry the lighter subsequent color values in the painting. Here I am adding the lights on the clouds where they are being touched by the sun rays, and I'm liking how it adds that characteristic shimmer in the clouds, so typical of an African sunset, by using touches of cadmium lemon with a touch of titanium white and buff titanium, and a warm cadmium red with touches of magenta and titanium white in the clouds. A typical Bushveld scene is full of delicate and complex detail. The bush is a type of landscape that holds a very special place in my heart. Since I was a child, my fondest memories are of these sunsets with sparkling light between the foliage of the trees. I used to stare and dream away for hours on end, on carefree afternoons, and I feel somewhat nostalgic about these special carefree places in my life, and often revisit them in my paintings. Using a 2-inch hog bristle varnish brush is a great way to indicate the fine rugged texture of the foliage of the tree. I tend to avoid using a fan brush when creating these trees. The fan brush tends to create too many repetitive marks that's not really indicating or suggesting the foliage of these trees. It looks kind of fake. You could use the edges of the fan brush, and yes, that would help you to create a better suggestion of the foliage of these trees. But I feel that this 2-inch varnish brush I altered and tampered with just works so much better. That varnish brush just leaves marks behind that paves the way for all that sparkling light between the infinitely fine branches and leaves a great illusion of detail with very little effort indeed. After adding in some warmer color tones using olive green and raw sienna into the foliage of the tree, I can proceed tweaking and keying up the highlights in my painting and gradually bring the painting to its completion. Let me give you an important tip on highlights. It is important to leave the highlights for the end stages of the painting. Too much titanium white in your painting is going to make your painting look chalky, and you want to use highlights sparingly so that the painting sparkles. Limiting your amount of light creates sparkling highlights. Using a fine lettering brush and some Mars brown paint, I proceed putting in those fine branches and some highlighted green between the branches. It's just a matter of doing all those finishing touches and having done all my groundwork and created all those textures in previous layers of paint. It paves the way to carry those final details. I put in the final touches of highlights in those grasses, indicating the rugged shrubbery that grows on the savanna floor, with its varying colors in the grasses. Once again, I'm using my altered 2-inch varnish brush for the detail and just lightly touching and sweeping over with that brush and some burnt sienna and a little orange and a little magenta. Then I turn my attention to bringing out that tree by lightening the color of the mountains behind that tree and just altering the edges here and there for more contrast as I see necessary. The dark in between the branches is bringing out that backlight, and I'm excited to see my painting taking shape. It's just a few more brush marks and I'm positive my painting will be done. In concluding this work, I must say that the process of creating this beautiful bushveld scene was an enjoyable process. And by just formulating a few simple rules and techniques, I am able to create works of art fairly rapidly with high amounts of details and enjoy the entire process. Enjoying to paint is one of the greatest indicators that your process is effective and working. The task of painting must never feel too laborious or frustrating, as there is a shortcut for just about every detail you might encounter. Once again, thank you for your support and for watching. Like, subscribe, and see you soon.